Okay, guys, well, this is really interesting because this involves Venus, Earth, the Sun, and Orion, and also the Maya. Now, I pay attention to anything with Venus because Venus was very important to the Maya. And I know the Maya were absolutely first class astronomers and would not have paid attention to Venus unless they knew how important it was. Now, they revered Venus as much as they revered the sun. I mean, when you look at all of the other cultures and you see how they deified the sun and how they regarded the sun, well, imagine the Maya did the same thing with not only the sun but Venus. And this is because they knew Venus was a timekeeper. And the Mayas say Venus was a timekeeper. And this is because Venus brought in the ages. You know, Venus is the timekeeper of the eons, of the cycle, of the ages. And Venus brings in the, new cycles of consciousness as we experience the, Creator's influence more profoundly than at other times. So there are bigger cycles above us in the macrocosm. And due to those cycles above us, we experience an illumination of light that is experienced on the physical plane and illuminates in turn our divinity and our potential. And so this is what was known as the Golden Age. And so you can imagine such an important time on Earth would be remembered by every culture. And this is why it's pretty much a no-brainer that all of the mythology and all of the information is about what occurs, this illumination, this return of the divine ones who are the firstborn of the Creator. And through their illumination, the collective illuminates and we experience a time of higher consciousness on the physical plane. And so, though I don't really like focusing on dates because I do believe that dates really are something where we're trying to define the undefinable because we always have to account for a chaos factor. So there can never be any real surety in some things. In others, there is. I mean, the sun will always rise, the moon will always orbit the sun. The earth, and we will always orbit the sun. Some things are just cycles. This is where I imagine Ezekiel's wheel. It's just the cycle within the cycle, and you can't change that. But you can change when these events occur as determined by our consciousness, because we do have somewhat of an effect reflecting back to the higher consciousness. So we do have an influence in a way on the timing of events. And there are a few hermetic drawings where you actually see God's hand and he is playing like an instrument where he can change the tune of the instrument. And so this is why, dependent upon events playing out in time frames on the physical, the ethereal responds and vice versa. So I hope I understand that kind of influence of the Creator that you can never quite determined. So even though some events you won't ever change, there are ways to influence our destiny in the way events are timed consciously. So I hope I've explained that. And so basically that's why I really don't focus on dates, though I do find that dates are important indicators of shifts. And so even if you don't see something in the physical play out in response to that date, you still understand that that date was bringing in another important part of the cycle as it continues to evolve. Because, imagine that we're like changing gears all the time, okay? And it's also done in like a Fibonacci sequence. And this is why, as we move towards the 0 point in all of this, back to source, we feel that time is speeding up. And that's because it actually is, in regards to following the Fibonacci sequence, basically, along those lines. It would be speeding up and doubling in itself. And so this is why events seem to play out faster and faster, because, as I said, cause and effect start to accelerate. So the intervals in between cause and effect become smaller, which makes you always feel that there is a lot of activity going on, and that therefore makes you feel overwhelmed. And this is why a lot of people feel that things are so busy now, life's so busy, everyone's so busy. And this is because of this acceleration of consciousness that we're feeling in relation to the acceleration of time. And you've got to understand that time in the physical, in the analog, is attached to us in the physical. So it is only relaying to us what we are presently experiencing. It's not really relaying ethereal time. Okay, it's locked into the matrix, so you won't see time really change by the clock. It will just be in the way that you are feeling, just in your conscious awareness of events around you and how it seems that they transpire very quickly before you look at the clock, and it seems like you haven't really done a lot, and it seems to be so late. So this is where we're feeling that time is speeding up, but we can't really account for it because we're expecting to see it in the physical play out on our clocks. So you see, you've really got to start moving into the ethereal. I probably am talking another language to a lot of people. And so, this is why I can't really stop relaying information and wait for other people to catch up, So I'm just hoping that when you're listening to this information, you will just in time be able to understand how I'm trying to relay it, and what I'm trying to explain to you in relation to what we're experiencing at the moment. I mean, if you're one of those people that just think we're experiencing nothing and reality is just completely normal and you can't feel any shifts of energy, there's nothing around you that you are finding the least bit interesting or amazing, or something to even that makes you feel that there's something not quite right going on, or that you can't quite explain, then seriously, you're like dead inside. You're like, seriously, you just may as well just hook back into the matrix, plug back into the machine. It'd be more humane for you to go out that way, plugged back into the machine, than kind of go out half awake. So, those, however, that are open-minded and are seeking knowledge and understanding of who they are and what is occurring in these times, well, we're always looking for indicators to confirm what we're actually feeling, because we know that we're not going crazy, because we can see that others are confirming in what we're feeling, as well as there are other indicators confirming for us that these events are taking place. A lot of us are seeing number synchronicities. A lot of other events are just playing out that within ourselves confirm for us that there is definitely something we believe is happening. And so we go and seek information to try and have an understanding for that. And so this is why when I see information like that, I do pay attention. Though, as I said, I don't put and hinge everything on dates, I do think it's just interesting that these dates have occurred, and that we should actually pay attention to them because the ancients did. And so we know that they were some of the best astronomers, to present day. I mean, the Maya were absolutely so accurate. I mean, not even NASA could be that accurate without their equipment, but the Maya were. And this is why people, they find it very hard to understand how the Maya accessed such information. And that's because we're trying to imagine ourselves in higher consciousness when we're in lower consciousness, and we basically resemble like peanut brains, okay? And we're trying to, imagine greatness. I mean, it's just impossible for us to understand how great we are when we're actually currently in peanut consciousness, okay? But you do have to understand that this information becomes available to us through the ethereal, through our divinity, through our, our own greatness of understanding who we are and our place in the universe. So we don't need an extension of technology. I mean, this is what we build in the physical when we're in lower consciousness, because we can't access this ethereally. And so, we don't need to think that the Maya just, winged it, or there was some aliens come down and told them. No, okay, it was them. They knew because they were in high consciousness, just like the ancient Egyptians knew, just like the Hindu knew, just like the Hopi knew, just like every single race has their group that has this information, and then this information overfloweth like the cup. Go once again and have a look at the Ace of Cups on the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, and that is what you are seeing. That is what is permeating the physical plane, and this is where the cup runneth over and the collective benefits from the illumination. So anyway, what I've done is I've just grabbed out a couple of bits from this article. I'll link the article underneath, but there was just a couple of pieces within the article that really caught my eye that I wanted to bring to your attention. And once again, it's just good to have, because you do a video on it and then you have it in your information, store. And then as you go further with your research, if something comes up in regards to that, again, you can go back and then you can pick from that information that you've already, found. So what I've done is just put this in a Word document, and then I'm just going to read it to you and leave you with it, and just give you a quick rundown of a few different things in here that I think are important to pay attention to. And then I'll leave you with this, and you can go and check out that article in full. So basically it goes on to talk about the Venus and Earth orbit, but also some very other interesting factors within this orbit and these alignments that include Orion, and also include the Sun and the Moon. Now, it goes on to say, the nearly 2-day Venus-Earth differential over 8 years creates a conjunction cycle of 1440 years, or 1,440 years. Now, isn't that a very interesting number, guys, when we know that 144 is a Fibonacci number? Okay, so can we see once again how sacred geometry is basically the blueprint of the universe? So when we need to confirm information, we should be looking for these types of numbers just to know that we are on, the right path. So if we can match these numbers within mythology or within other information that they've left to us, like alignments with their glyphs and angles and other information, then it helps us to understand how they were trying to communicate to us. And that was, they were trying to tell us everything's based on sacred geometry, guys. So look at everything based on sacred geometry and look at it as important. That's what we're trying to tell you. I mean, this is how they were trying to communicate to us in a way that they imagined they themselves would understand in lower consciousness. Are you understanding the kind of problems you have communicating consciously when you're at the two different extremes of a conscious, level? And so this is why we find it so confusing when we look at this symbolism, because we don't have an understanding for this symbolism within our memory, and we have to rely on the ancients that put down this information. Well, guess what happened to that? Guess what happened to the information that got put down for us so that we would remember when we were in times of lower consciousness? Oh, that would have been pillaged and stolen by the Antichrist, okay, and other organizations that swore to uphold their honor and integrity and loyalty to the Holy Grail and to the information from, divine source, and they didn't, because they also were affected by lower consciousness, you see, and they ended up coveting the infinite information and keeping it for themselves. And so this is why now we have to rely on our own memory of bringing back this information. And now we know that it's all based on sacred geometry. That gives us a really big, clue of where to look. So it seems that this cycle of 1,440 years is going to be something important to us. And that's what they're saying, is that this 8-year cycle between Venus and Earth lines up again in the same kind of conjunction on the same day of the year every 1,440 years. And they call this an inferior conjunction. And it starts the cycle for a given day of the year and the 1,440 years later. Another inferior conjunction again lines up on that day. There are very noticeable inferior conjunctions that transit the disk of the Sun. These can only occur when the nodes of Venus orbit fall between the Earth and the Sun in a direct line of sight. There are only a few days twice a year where this can occur. These can serve as a marker for the observation of the long cycle. These dates are on or about June the 6th and December the 9th of each year for the current epoch. Transits of Venus occur in cycles of 243 years, with the current pattern of transits being pairs of transits separated by 8 years, at intervals of 105.5 years and 121.5 years. The nodes of Venus orbit fall in mid-Gemini and mid-Sagittarius, close to heart of sky. In an earlier era, they did line up with heart of sky and the dark rift. Gemini marks one of the important Maya constellations which we can identify with as their hero twins. The hero twins of the Maya cosmology are located here, and the constellation is right next to the heart of sky, marked by Orion's upraised arm and club in our cosmology. Now, Orion is heart of sky, okay? This is a very important alignment here. And when they talk about the hero twins, they're not just talking about two male twins, okay? Again, we have to understand that as everybody falls into lower consciousness, they forget the female aspect because we move into the physical and the male just generally takes over, okay? He just does this naturally. This is just his characteristic to do so because he's a physical, being, more than ruled by the ethereal consciously than the female, and even physically to some extent. And so the male consciously will always descend further into the physical and attach further into the physical than the female. Okay, and so this is why we see most of the elders that hand down all of this information are male. Okay, there is a few that remember the female, but it's always in the way too that it was something that we revered in the past, grandmother of the past, the mother goddess of the past, goddess worship of the past. No, it's because we understood back then there was equal in the male and female when it came to everything, including the divine ones, the messiahs, okay? They were both male and female, and so the hero twins are male and female. And when you look at the actual mythology behind Gemini, okay, and the twin myth behind Gemini, Pollux and Castor, they both had female counterparts. But that was conveniently left out, and nobody really knows that. Go and have a look at the mythology of Gemini, okay, and Castor and Pollux, and how they both had a female counterpart as well, and they were birthed onto the physical plane in eggs, okay, telling the story of the divine ones, all right, the firstborn of the Creator. It's all there if we want to look at it, all right. So that was really interesting that I saw the dark rift come up and the heart of sky, because I know that that's connected to Orion. Now, the other interesting thing that came up in this article is this guy has done a little bit of a calculation and calculated that we actually had this heart of sky alignment occur, this what he calls something quite significant, on December the 21st, 2010. Now, I do find that interesting that happened in 2010. And once again, I'm not really going to be focused on the actual 21st of December so much then of the fact that a lot of people woke up around 2010. I started my video channel in 2011, right at the beginning of the year, and it was late 2010, October around, maybe earlier. Actually, it was around June. It was around the BP oil disaster, whenever that happened, that I started understanding that things were starting to seem a bit more crazy and I couldn't ignore them anymore. Because, I woke up in 99, but I went back to sleep again for a while. And then I woke up a bit in 2007, 2005, 2007. I think it was more 2007 when I really look back at it. And then again, 2010. And I talk to other people and there seems to be this connection to these times. So I do find it interesting. Once again, I'm just going to put it back there in that, okay, that is interesting that he has found this alignment that he feels that happened with Heart of Sky. Well, anyway, on January the 11th, 2014, we're going to have another one of these inferior conjunctions where Venus is going to transit from the evening to the morning star. Now, there is so much mythology about when this happens. And once again, this article does go into a little bit of it. But, also I'll link another article where it tells you that, Venus was also the planet of war and the timer of war. And in this article here, it goes on about Venus being the two-faced goddess. And it goes on to say that her evening manifestation was said to bring men and women to the act of love in bed. But her morning appearance woke them up to go to war. And we're having this, morning star on the 17th of January. So I just think, again, if we're looking at the practices of the establishment, then, we pretty much know that they look at these occult events. And so if there was to be some type of conflict, then these would be the times that would be more attractive to them than others. And this is what basically it comes down to. It's not that it guarantees anything, it's just that it gives them a better chance of victory if they use these certain alignments, because there are these certain energies of these certain alignments. But, it's also interesting that they talk about the messiahs in relation to this transit between these conjunctions, this 8 days. And once again, we see the number 8, which we know is very, very important. So anyway, guys, I'll link the articles underneath, and then you can check them out in full. The guy goes into all of this information about how he has compared this, cycle of Venus to the different events geologically on our planet. So that's quite interesting. But I was just focused on this information because it's fitting in with what the ancient knowledge is showing us, and it's also fitting in with us understanding that we're now at the end of a cycle, guys, and we're moving into a new cycle with the ether returning. And this is why all of this information is now making itself known to us, and we're remembering and discovering this information again. Okay, well, I really will leave it here. And as always, peace out.